How do the students learn? We shall discuss today the very important method of teaching and learning, that is Socratic method of teaching and learning. Socrates was a great Greek philosopher from Athens. He is well known as the founder of the Western philosophy. His style of teaching was always with only questions to his disciples. He never gave any answer to any question. His students come out with answers, then he will pose further questions. Again they come out with answers. He will pose further questions. That means he believes in that the students themselves can find out the truth by exploration, by inquiry, by self-reflections. Then it becomes really knowledge of the students. It is not a teacher giving some information and students remember it and recall it and reproduce in the examinations. Socratic method totally differs from the kind of method going on in many schools and colleges and universities in the country. The Socratic method, though it was considered the oldest method, it is still the most effective teaching strategy for fostering critical thinking. It is a very good active learning strategy. Teachers focus on giving questions to the students, but not answers. Never, never. Only students have to find out the answers. Teachers model an inquiring and probing mind. An inquiring and probing mind, which continuously probes into the subject with questions. As I mentioned earlier, it is the basis for the modern inquiry approach. The abilities we gain by focusing on reasoning in a disciplined and self-assessing way, and logical relationships that result from such disciplined thought, prepare us for Socratic questioning. Socratic questioning is a highly disciplined process. The Socratic questioner acts as the logical equivalent of the inner critical voice which the mind develops when it develops critical thinking abilities. The contributions from the members of the class, from the students of the class, are like so many thoughts in the mind. All of the thoughts must be dealt with carefully and fairly. By following up all answers from the students with further questions, and by selecting questions, such questions which advance discussion, the Socratic questioner facilitates the class to think in a disciplined and intellectually responsible manner. Look here, a Socratic questioner should keep the discussion focused always, not astray, focused. Keep the discussion intellectually responsible. That means the students are totally attentive. The questioners stimulate the discussion with the probing questions, not superficial questions. Probing questions. Periodically summarize what has and what has not been dealt with and are resolved periodically. Then go further. Based on the knowledge gained, proceed further for advancement of knowledge. The questioner draws many students into the discussion. The discussion will be organized in such a way that students would like to enter into the discussion. Students enjoy the discussion. That is how the discussion has to be organized very carefully by the questioner, by the teacher. Then, inquiry-based learning is a pedagogical method which was developed during the discovery learning movement of 1960s. When you consider the philosophy of inquiry-based learning, it finds roots in Socratic method of learning and in constructivist learning theories which were already there by Piaget, John Dewey and Vygotsky. If you consider all these methods of learning, they are not mutually exclusive. They support each other. When the teachers understand the essence of all the methods of learning, teacher is capable of choosing an appropriate method for a particular discipline at a given point of time. Inquiry can be conducted through exploration because inquiry values the same concepts like engaging with content in questioning as well as investigating and collaborating to make meaning. Let us see what are the characteristics of inquiry-based learning. Inquiry-based learning involves developing questions, very important, developing questions, most important. Relevant questions, but questions that advance the discussion, not to test the remember and recall level. Always advancing the discussion. Making observations. Making observations is very, very important in learning any discipline, especially in science and engineering. Observation of nature. Observation when you do the experiment with a totally open mind, no bias, no prejudice. The great discoveries occurred only because of the open mind, fresh mind of the scientist, which have revolutionized the progress of the mankind. And developing methods for experiments, for new experiments, developing instruments for data collection. That is how the entire science and technological inventions have been made with the new instruments for data collection. You see, when the simple microscope was invented, scientists were able to see certain things. But when scanning electron microscope was discovered, they could do much more because the magnification fine power is so high and many features are there which were not there in the simple microscope. So, invention of new instruments, collecting, analyzing and interpreting the data, very important, sir. Outlining possible explanations and conclusions. Sir, most important, still with an open mind to investigate further. We have done an experiment, observed, collected data, made the interpretation, but that is not everything. Still, the student or the learner is still with an open mind. Perhaps when he or she conducts another experiment, perhaps may be able to get different data, then his mind should not be conditioned with already known knowledge. There is no end. Knowledge is unlimited. So, open mind is very, very important. Whether you consider the Socratic method or inquiry method, or any method for that matter, in learning, Open mind is very, very important, sir. Inquiry-based learning can be done in multiple formats, which include fieldwork, experiments, case studies, investigations, individual and group projects, research projects. In all these, inquiry-based learning can only give you new knowledge. You can contribute to new knowledge only through inquiry. Inquiry-based learning will lead the student to higher order thinking skills. Teachers should encourage divergent thinking. Divergent thinking is very important, sir. Please remember, always convergent thinking and divergent thinking, both should be encouraged among the students. Allow the students to ask their own questions and learn strategies to discover answers by themselves. They ask challenging questions to the teacher. They also learn their own strategies to discover answers. See, the higher order thinking skills developed during inquiry will assess the students in critical thinking skills needed to learn other subjects also. The students will be able to connect with different disciplines. Students will not be only with the fragmented knowledge. He will be having an interdisciplinary approach in learning, multidisciplinary approach in learning, in thinking process. As shown on the neuroscience of inquiry learning, it is significant to scaffold students to teach them how to inquire. That is important, sir, not giving information. Teach the students how to inquire, then they will be able to get their own, construct their own knowledge. It cannot be assumed that students know how to inquire without foundational skills. Right? So that means skills of inquiry have to be introduced at a very early age through experimentation, even at primary school itself. Once they know how to learn through inquiry method, then definitely they will go to much higher creative level of learning. Therefore, scaffolding students at a very young age will result in enriched inquiry-based learning later. I consider inquiry-based learning must be introduced at the elementary level in primary education through activities and experiments without giving answers. Very often as teachers we are very quick to answer the answer. No. Let them discover. Now, as I want to conclude this lecture, first, with Socratic method of teaching and learning is very useful before introducing a new topic. But the questions have to be carefully designed by the teacher to lead the students from known to unknown. The questions may be given as a home assignment also. After the students spend some time in exploring the answers for the questions, again in the class, the same questions may be given as a group task for a few minutes. The teacher can then organize discussion on those questions and ultimately the students will have to find out the answers. Teacher does not give the answers. Inquiry method of learning can be used in all the disciplines, at all levels of education, to foster learning at higher cognitive levels. Here, whether you consider Socratic method or inquiry method, teachers' resourcefulness, effort and skill in organizing the activities play a very vital role in the quality of the learning outcomes of the students.